Everyone believed success arrived with talent. Some believed it came from luck. Others blamed their family, their city, or the opportunities they never received. But in one small town lived a young man named Jonah who had none of those things. No wealthy parents, no powerful connections, no extraordinary intelligence. If you had met him at 22, you probably wouldn't have remembered him 5 minutes later. He worked a small warehouse job, rented a tiny apartment with peeling paint, drove a 15-year-old pickup that rattled every time he started it, and ended most months wondering how he'd pay the next bill. His classmates seemed miles ahead. One became a lawyer, another launched a startup. Others filled social media with vacations, promotions, engagement rings, and new homes. Every scroll reminded Jonah that he was falling behind. For months, he searched for shortcuts. He watched motivational videos late into the night, downloaded productivity apps, bought expensive planners that stayed empty after a week. Every Monday felt like a fresh beginning. Every Friday looked exactly the same. One rainy evening, exhausted after another 12-hour shift, Jonah visited an old bookstore simply because it was dry inside. Near the back sat an elderly owner organizing dusty shelves. He noticed Jonah staring at dozens of self-help books. The old man smiled. "You don't need another book." Jonah looked confused. "You need better habits." The words sounded almost disappointing. Jonah had expected some hidden secret. Instead, the old man handed him a tiny notebook. Inside the first page were only 5 handwritten sentences. "Master these long enough," the old man said quietly, "and your life will become unrecognizable." Jonah laughed politely. 5 habits? Could life really change because of something that simple? Still, he decided he had nothing to lose. The next morning, Jonah started with the first habit. Habit number 1, win the first hour. Instead of grabbing his phone the moment he woke up, Jonah left it across the room. No social media, no news, no messages. For the first hour, he stretched, drank water, read 10 pages of a book, and wrote down the 3 most important things he wanted to accomplish that day. At first, it felt painfully boring. His fingers almost reached for the phone dozens of times. But after 2 weeks, something surprising happened. His mornings no longer felt rushed. His mind became quieter. Instead of reacting to everyone else's priorities, he started living according to his own. Nothing dramatic had happened, yet somehow every day felt more intentional. The second habit looked even less exciting. Habit number 2, learn something every single day. Not for school, not for a certificate, not because someone forced him, simply because ignorance is expensive. Every evening after work, Jonah spent 30 minutes learning. Communication, money management, psychology, sales, negotiation, public speaking, history, writing. Some days he watched lectures. Other days he listened to audiobooks while driving. Many nights he felt too tired. But he remembered something the bookstore owner had said. Most people stop learning the day they stop attending school. Months passed. His co-workers spent lunch breaks complaining. Jonah spent them reading. Friends laughed. "You studying to become a professor?" He only smiled. Because deep down he realized something. Knowledge compounds quietly. Just like interest in a bank account. Nobody notices the first deposits. Everyone notices the fortune years later. The third habit changed something even deeper. Habit number 3, keep promises to yourself. Jonah noticed he constantly broke tiny promises. "I'll start tomorrow. I'll exercise later. I'll save money next month." Every broken promise made him trust himself a little less. So he created one simple rule. If he promised himself something, he did it, even if it meant reading only 1 page, doing only 5 push-ups, saving only $10. The size didn't matter. Consistency did. Slowly, something incredible happened. His confidence grew, not because people praised him, because every completed promise became evidence that he could depend on himself. Most confidence isn't built by compliments, it's built by keeping your word, especially to yourself. The 4th habit was the hardest. Habit number 4, protect your circle. Jonah began paying attention to conversations. Some friends discussed ideas, others discussed people. Some inspired action, others manufactured excuses. Without making dramatic announcements, he slowly spent less time with people who constantly complain. Instead, he looked for mentors, older co-workers, business owners, readers, people who challenged his thinking instead of feeding his fears. At first, he felt lonely. Growth often feels lonely before it feels rewarding. Months later, he noticed something. The quality of his conversations had changed. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" he began asking, "What can I learn from this?" That single change transformed every obstacle into a classroom. Then came the fifth habit, the one that seemed completely unrelated to success. Habit number 5, finish every day with reflection. Every night before sleeping, Jonah answered 3 questions. What went well today? What mistake did I make? What will I improve tomorrow? No judgment, no guilt, just honesty. Some nights his answers were embarrassing. I wasted 2 hours. I lost my temper. I made excuses. But instead of pretending everything was fine, he learned from every mistake. Tiny improvements accumulated, 1% better, again and again and again. Nothing magical happened during the first month or the second. Even after 6 months, Jonah still lived in the same apartment, still drove the same truck, still worked the same job. People who judged success by appearances saw nothing different, but inside, everything had changed. His manager noticed he solved problems without being asked. Customers trusted him. Co-workers sought his advice. A year later, Jonah earned a promotion, not because he demanded one, because he had quietly become impossible to ignore. With higher income, he didn't rush to buy luxury. He invested, saved, continued learning, started a small side business using the communication skills he had developed. The business failed. He reflected, adjusted, tried again, failed again, reflected again. Each failure became another lesson instead of another excuse. Eventually, the business worked. Years passed. The same classmates who once looked far ahead now wondered how Jonah had caught up. Some even assumed he had gotten lucky. One former coworker asked him over coffee, "So what's your secret?" Jonah smiled. He thought about the expensive seminars people chased, the overnight success stories everyone admired, the viral advice promising instant transformation. Then he quietly replied, "There wasn't one big decision. There were 5 small habits, repeated for years." The coworker looked disappointed. He wanted something faster, something easier, something dramatic. But that's the uncomfortable truth about success. The habits that change your life rarely feel life-changing while you're doing them. Reading 10 pages doesn't feel extraordinary. Keeping a promise to yourself doesn't earn applause. Learning for 30 minutes won't make headlines. Reflecting before bed won't impress anyone. Protecting your circle won't go viral. Yet together, those invisible actions slowly reshape the person staring back at you in the mirror. A few years later, Jonah returned to the same old bookstore. The shelves looked exactly as they had before. The elderly owner recognized him instantly. "So," the old man asked with a smile, "did the notebook work?" Jonah looked around the quiet store before answering. It wasn't the notebook. It was finally understanding that success isn't built on extraordinary days. It's built on ordinary days repeated extraordinarily well. The old man nodded as if he'd heard that answer many times before. Outside, people hurried past searching for shortcuts, searching for the next secret, the next hack, the next overnight miracle. Few realize the greatest transformation rarely begins with one giant leap. It begins the morning you decide to honor one small habit and then repeat it long after the excitement disappears. Because in the end, successful people aren't defined by what they occasionally accomplish. They're defined by what they repeatedly do when no one is watching. And perhaps that's the strangest truth of all. The life you've always wanted may not require a completely different version of yourself. It may simply require 5 ordinary habits. Practice long enough for the world to mistake your consistency for talent.